That's an important point, that it's an attack on the freedom of the army as well. Now, do you think that General Naravane would not have understood, General Mehta, that an MOD clearance is required, or do the armed forces people, do they need the clearance from the MOD for writing a book once they've retired?
No,
Yes.
it's inconceivable that General Narwane won't know the rules of the game. After all, he's been in the army for 40 years. And as a former soldier, I know that if you write an article, if you in a magazine, if you want something published in a newspaper, if you want to go abroad, if you want to marry a foreign national, the armed forces are bound by rules and restrictions, and especially freedom of expression. Now, that is understandable to an extent. But when you talk about a former army chief who is retired and who has advanced copies of the book published by the publishers but not officially released, there is no way that Naravane could have forwarded this book to the publisher without due diligence and getting all the clearances that were required. So, all that having been done, this is clearly a case of bolting the stable door after the horse has skipped. And somebody in the government got alerted when excerpts of this book began appearing in various newspapers. And then the government immediately stopped the publication. And since then, you hadn't heard about this book. Subsequently, after 2 years, Sushant Singh, he's a former army officer, writes an article in the Caravan magazine, and he has put all that together of what Naravane has written about the line of actual control, about Galwan, and about this one brilliant operation that was carried out by the Indian Army called Operation Snow Leopard in August of 2020. And this particular controversy and this offending remark about the army chief going back to the defense minister and various people was on the night of 31st August, where clearly, and this bit we are not sure what happened, he is asking for permission to fire. Now, you can turn around and say that why is the army chief wanting permission to fire? Yes, he is asking permission to fire because somewhere he is being told, because he quotes this in his book, that I will not be the first to fire. If I am not going to be the first to fire, then I want to know, Mr. Prime Minister, what shall I do now? Chinese tanks are coming up the Kailash Ridge. There are 500 meters away. I need your permission because you have told me, or somebody has told me, that I will not be the first to fire because I don't want to start the war. So I think this remark about जो आप उचित समझो वैसे करो was what I think he calls this I was handed a hot potato, or he uses that word. And after that, the situation kind of diffused. But the fact is that the government abrogated its responsibility of giving full directions before any operation is launched in a disputed area, as was the case in 2020. The government has to give an operational directive. This was a special operation being launched, and it was no way that this operation could have been launched without clearance by the government.
Right.
And in
No, but
that clearance, apparently the government
yeah, yeah,
said,
go
you
ahead.
should not be the first to fire, do the operation.
Right. No, but Pushpa,
So
the
this
question.
is where,
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead. Complete your point, sir. Complete your point.
no, I finished that. There are many other things that come up because the follow-up actions that were taken and what mistakes the government made. The release of this book will open a hornet's nest. It's a can of
No, it does.
worms
It does.
because
But
it will show the government in bad light.
all right. Now, General Mehta, what would you say to this controversy now? What are the options left with General Naravane? He has, as an author, as an individual, of course, he's been a former army chief. But apart from that, what can he do individually at the individual level? Now he's tied up because he's already signed a contract with the Penguin. Penguin is also in a soup. Does that also put Naravane, General Naravane, also in a further soup? Now, what does he do, and what are the options which he can exercise?
The first question is that how did Penguin and Random House, such a big publishing giant, go through this process of publishing advanced copies without getting adequate clearance? I mean, um, did it, and this question Pushpraj can answer, uh, that how is it that they published even the advanced copies and excerpts were given by PTI if, as the government will claim, it had not cleared the book? And that is why I feel, and there's another person involved in this, which is the chief of army staff. Chief of army staff knows the rules. I mean, he's been in the army for long enough to know that he can't get a book published which deals with military service without getting clearance. So I cannot imagine that he would have not, he would have sent his manuscript to the publishers to get it cleared. So are the publishers required to get it cleared in the case of government servants? Because there are now new rules after this gentleman
General
from
Mehta, are you also aware of any such rule that if supposing an armed forces personnel needs to write a book on his or her experiences, do they need to get a clearance? In your
absolute,
time, was there a rule like
absolute,
this?
absolutely, the book has to be cleared, uh, even if you write an ordinary article. And
All right.
but in this case, he's written a comprehensive book, and apparently, because former raw chief Dulat has written a number of books about he's a raw chief, and it's about deals with his term as the raw chief in Kashmir and dealing with Kashmir. And now the government has issued new rules that people who have served now, meaning recently after Naravane and Dullat's book, that government servants who have served the government will need to get government clearance. And they have now threatened them that their pension can be withheld and various other punishments. So that's the first modular question, that how the hell did this book get into what form of print? And the second question is that the government is in a bind. The government is in a bind because if this book is released, and the speaker in the Lok Sabha have said this book has not been published, and so he's drawing the line at being published, and therefore not allowing the leader of the opposition to quote from an officially unpublished book, but otherwise with advanced copies. So there
Right.
is the problem.
Right.
So I think, but the bottom line is, it will not let this book see the light of day. It will not permit any debate, which it has not permitted since 2020 on the line of actual control, on the pretext that it will undermine the morale of soldiers and
Absolutely.
undermine our national security.